Hey Travis, good morning. So I am making a video right now for you, so you can kind of watch what we've been learning about in class. I brought Scully over here because typically in class we've used Scully as an example, and actually when we're studying the skeletal system, because he's got all the bones, right? So one of the things we talked about in class is the ribs. It's the ribs and the sternum. So there's a couple of things you want to look at on Scully here. This is his sternum. We call it the sternum or the breastbone. It's 3 parts, okay? You've got your manubrium, which is the top, okay? These are your clavicles, okay, or your collarbones, right? They attach the top part of the sternum. The top part of the sternum is called your manubrium. The middle part of the body is your gladiolus, and this little tip where my finger is at is your xiphoid process. All this is in your notes too as well, so you want to make sure that you're filling in your notes and kind of looking over this stuff, because it will be on tomorrow's test, whether you take it tomorrow or Thursday. So you got your clavicles. Your clavicles attached to the manubrium part of the sternum. Your gladiolus is the body, and your xiphoid process is the tip, okay? Most of your ribs also attach with cartilage or actually attach, to the sternum. If you can see, they come along and they attach to the sternum. And then your ribs typically attach to your thoracic vertebrae and your back. Remember, this is our thoracic cavity, so it's easy to remember that this is our thoracic vertebrae. Okay, our neck vertebrae is our cervical. This is our thoracic, and down by our waist is our lumbar vertebrae. But our ribs attach to the sternum on the front, and then they attach to the thoracic vertebrae here on the back. Okay, so what do you need to know about the ribs? Make sure you look over the ribs. We have 12 pairs of ribs all together, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and there's a little one back there that makes 12. Okay, so 12 pair of ribs all together, and this is stuff that we've kind of been going over and over in class. So you have 12 pairs of ribs all together. 7 of those ribs are what they call true ribs. What do they mean by true ribs? Is that they actually attach to the sternum. Okay, so 12 pairs of ribs, 7 are true ribs, meaning they actually attach. You have 5 pairs of ribs that are considered false ribs because they don't directly attach to the sternum. They kind of blend in with the cartilage down here, and then they gradually work their way up. Okay, then you have 2 pairs of floating ribs. Okay, and we always ask the kids in class, do the ribs actually float? No, they don't actually float, okay, even though they call them floating ribs. They do not attach to the sternum in the front. They do, however, attach, I don't know if you can see it on the video, let's move his arm out the way. Right back here where my finger is at, there's one of them, and then there's the one above it. So you can see this is the front of them. They don't attach to the sternum in the front. They do attach to your thoracic vertebrae, so they don't actually float. Okay, so you have 12 pairs of ribs all together. 7 are true ribs, 5 are false ribs, and 2 float. Do they actually float? No, they attach to the thoracic vertebrae in the back. They don't, however, attach to the sternum in the front. Okay, talked about the ribs. We talked about intervertebral discs. You're probably like, intervertebral disc, what is that? Have you ever heard of people having slipped disc or a ruptured disc in their back and their back hurts a lot? Okay, that means they got an issue with their intervertebral discs. I'm gonna hold them up the best I can so you can see. See, these are our vertebrae right here. This is bone, okay? In between the bone is cartilage, and we call that our intervertebral discs. Why do we have them? For one, you don't want bone rubbing on bone. That would be painful, right? It would hurt. And so it acts as shock absorbers, and they allow our body to bend and move. Our body would not be able to bend, twist, move, bend over and stuff if we didn't have intervertebral discs or cartilage in between our vertebrae. Okay, so these are our vertebrae right here. Okay, where my fingers are at. Okay, so these are our vertebrae. Intervertebral discs are simply cartilage in between the vertebrae. And that may possibly be one of the short answers on the test, is why do we have intervertebral discs? We have intervertebral discs to allow us to bend and move, otherwise we won't be able to bend and move, and they act as shock absorbers, okay? So that's intervertebral discs. Let's see, I'm just gonna look at the notes real quick to see if we're missing anything. So we talked about the ribs, the sternum, and the 3 parts to his sternum. We talked about the intervertebral, intervertebral disc, the sternum, the ribs. We also talked about the shoulder blades. So one thing that people commonly get confused at is that the humerus, which is your big arm bone, right, where my hand's at, this is the humerus part of the arm. A lot of people think it attaches to the clavicles or your shoulder, your collarbone. It does not. It attaches right here. And right here is your scapula or your shoulder blade, okay? So your humerus does not attach to your clavicles in any way, okay? Your humerus, and sometimes they say the upper arm bone. The upper arm bone is the same thing as the humerus. It does not attach to the clavicles in any way. It attaches to your scapula right here. If I were to put Scully back together, it would attach right here to his scapula, okay? Which is right back here, or your shoulder blades, okay? We also talked about the bones of the arm, all right? So you've got several bones that are in the arm, all right here. This one is your big arm bone, your humerus, okay? If you go down, you've got your radius and your ulna. And we talked about in class yesterday how the radius is cool in its own right and the ulna is cool in its own right as well. They each have what they call cool factors, I like to say. The ulna, remember the ulna connects to the pinky. Okay, so the ulna connects to the pinky. It is very cool because it makes up the elbow. If you look right here, it's got almost like a claw-like thing going on. Okay, that's called the olecranon process. So the olecranon process, and it's part of the ulna, okay, and it makes up the elbow. So we say the ulna is cool because it makes up the elbow, and it's on the pinky side. The radius has nothing in a sense to do, the other arm bone is the radius, has nothing in a sense to do with the elbow, so to speak, but we say it's cool because it rotates. In order for our hand to be able to go back and forth, the radius has to rotate. So the ulna is cool because it makes up the elbow. The radius is very cool because it rotates. Okay, and then you got your big arm bone at the top, the upper arm bone, they call it the humerus. Okay, hands, you get your carpals, your metacarpals, and your phalanges. Your fingers and your toes are always your phalanges. And I always joke, if you watch Friends, she always says, "My name is Regina Phalange." When she says her fake name is Regina Phalange, she's actually talking about her fingers and her toes. Okay, so we drive a car. We drive a car with our carpals. Okay, so that's why we say these are called carpals. That's how we remember. So carpals, metacarpals, phalanges are our fingers and our toes. Okay, so that's the bones of the arm. If you look at your leg bone, I don't have it apart, but you've got your leg bone. You know this is your femur, right? Your thigh bone is your femur. Down here, our shin bone, like, I bumped my shin. That's our tibia. And then the little bone in the back is our fibula. So sometimes we shorten it and say tib fib, like, oh, they injured their tib fib. That means your tibia and your fibula. So we say tibia is in the front, fibula is in the back, okay? Fibula is the smaller of the two, because we say fib is like a little white lie, so it's the smaller of the two. And your femur is your big thigh bone. As far as your toes go, your ankle is not your carpals, it's your tarsals. Okay, so your ankle is your tarsals. The sole of your foot is your metatarsals, and your toes are also called your phalanges. Okay. We also talked about, let me just see, I think the last thing we talked about is your hips. Okay, and then the other stuff I covered in the other video yesterday. So these are your hips, okay? Your hips, it looks like it's one big bone. It's not. Technically, it's three bones that are fused together. Ilium, ischium, and your pubis is down here, okay? So ilium, ischium, pubis, okay? So it's three bones that are fused together. Ilium, ischium, and then down here is your pubis, okay? So this is all your hip bones. In the middle is your sacrum, okay? This is not technically part of the hips, right? They're two separate things. This in the middle is your sacrum. If you look down, we always tell the kids there's two things you need to know here. The head of the femur, so they'll say the rounded head of the femur, because this is your big leg bone. The rounded head of the femur attaches to right here. It's like a little cave. It's your acetabula, and this is all in the notes. Your acetabula is right here, and that's where the rounded head of the femur attaches to. And then down here, you have these two big holes. You can see right here where my hands are at. Let me see if I can hold them up a little better. See the two big holes right there where my kind of fingers are at? Those are called your obturator foramen, okay? That's where they allow big blood vessels and nerves pass through there so they can attach to the body, okay? So you got your acetabula, which is where the femur attaches, and the two holes here are called your obturator foramen. That's where it allows big blood vessels to attach to the body, okay? I think that's about it. If you have any questions, let me know, but hopefully this video helps. If you watch this video and the other videos I posted on Khan Academy for your skeletal test that's coming up, it's going to post on Wednesday, and you have from Wednesday at 8 o'clock in the morning until Thursday at 11 to take it. Just remember, once you click on it, it is timed. I believe it's like 105 minutes. that you have to take it. If you have any questions, let me know, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.